Hi. Welcome to the newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Adib Mahmood, with my normal co-host, Hunter. And today we're going to be talking about World Cup, college football, and rest and NFL. So let's start with the World Cup. The U.S. had a 0-0 draw against England. What were your thoughts on that game, on that
Thought
match?
they were the better team. Everyone kept saying that this was the game that it's not about if we lose to England, it's about how much we lose to England because I think they're one of the five best teams in the world right now. But I thought the U.S. they started out a little slow in those first 5 to 10 minutes, but that rest of that half they had the better of the chances. Christian Pulisic hit the crossbar. Weston McKennie close to almost a chip shot, misses that one. Second half, they defended very well. England had a close chance in stoppage time. Other than that, Matt Turner really didn't have to come up with many saves. They had a couple of other decent chances in the second half. It was a well-deserved point. It just stinks that they couldn't get the other two with that. And now, you know, that Iran win over Wales wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it would have been better had those two teams drawn and the U.S. had drawn because they would have been the U.S. would have been ahead of Iran. They also would have been tied with Wales, and the U.S. I think would just need a draw to go through. They would have needed a draw to go through just because I don't think Wales is even going to take a point off England at this point. But now the U.S. they have to win on Tuesday. They should be favored against Iran, but the thing is, I think that they're going to park the bus in soccer terms, which means they're just kind of sit back and defend a lot just because they only need a draw to go through to the knockout round. I don't think they're really going to be pushing that hard. I think you're going to see that from the U.S. side of things. So as long as the U.S. I think continues to defend well, they just got to capitalize on a couple of their chances when they get them. They should be able to go through, but it's going to be I think tougher than some people think because this Iran team they have a couple good players, not that many, but again, they're also going to defend as hard as they can just because they don't want to, give up all 3 points in this loss. Again, it would be kind of weird if the U.S. did not get out of this group. You've had a draw against Wales. You probably should have won that game. You had a well-earned draw against England. You could have won that game as well. You can't have three stray draws in this group and get knocked out. I think that's going to look really bad on Greg Berhalter's resume, and I'm not really sure if he would be the manager in 2026 when the U.S. hosts. So this is a big game, not just for the players, but for the manager. He needs to make sure he, comes up with the right XI, has the right, just tactics to win this game. It's a one that they should be favored in, but I'm excited for it, that's for sure. But overall against England, I was happy with that performance. Could have won that game. I think, just a really hard fought game overall. What did you think?
I thought at the start U.S. had a really good strategy with the 4-4-2 strategy. I thought it was really great how they were just trying to contain England at first, and they weren't trying to let Harry Kane and some of the other strikers go out and get touches and allow them to stretch the field because you clearly saw that there were like when they were withholding when they took Harry Kane out of the game, their defense was really great, and they were had great momentum, and they were able to sustain those. They were able to go and defend really well. It was just when they were England was able to stretch the field. That's when it got a little bit nervous, and I thought they had a good game plan at the start. I mean, they did go away from a little bit, and then I like the fact that you had Weston did a good job with some runs. Anderson, I think it was Anderson. He had some good runs. They had some nice stretches, like in like in American football, like when you have like that 20 or 30-yard run by the running back. You had a lot. You had three or four of those moments by the U.S. and that was really exciting. They had some key moments like Pulisic missed like he was like an inch or two away from scoring.
Yeah.
Uh, they had that moment where it felt like there was like that 2 minute period where they had what was it like three or four corner kicks in
Mhm.
a really short time. So they had some good opportunities. They kind of squandered it, but you're right. This is a team. This is an England team that they that frankly people were counting the U.S. out and they thought this was going to be bad. It's a tie. Like you would have wanted to win, but 0-0. At least it wasn't a loss. You still put yourself in a win and you're in position against Iran. Um, but I mean, it is going to be. But this team clearly needs a striker. I mean, I feel like once they get that striker, they're going to be solid. Which is sad. Which is disappointing because there were a couple of players on that team that could have played that role that the coach didn't take. And then you have apparently this rumored rift between Gio Reyna and the coach, where the coach was saying, "Well, we're not playing you because you're not fit or you're not 100% ready." Turns out that might actually be a lie. Like it was a lie just so maybe just so other teams can play, so other players could be in the game more. And apparently his dad, like Reyna's dad, is upset. And this is all on Twitter. You could find this out, but it's decisions like this that are also baffling because this is still a young team, and Turner did a great job as goalie once again. So they have the pieces there, but I feel like they do have the coach or manager, coach that is holding them back. Whether it's withholding certain players that could have played striker role, or having Gio Reyna giving him little minutes, and then lying about why he was given those minutes. It's just it is something that I feel like is going to hold the United States back, and maybe they do go and get to the round of 16, but this team isn't going to go very far. The only hope is that you learn that they learn from some of the pitfalls that they clearly have, which I highlighted, and they go into next 2026 where they do host it where they do host the World Cup, and they do kind of correct those mistakes and pick the right pick certain players, but to be on the team. But it's a team that I don't think we're going to see them go very far if they do advance. But this is more. It's hopefully a nice tease of what it can be in 2026. But again, that's something more for the next few years to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it's good. It's good that they don't have to qualify for that one. They can just kind of do some friendlies, work on the roster. If they want to make a manager change after this game, if they don't win, they can do that as well. But this is still a game they should win. I don't think Iran is that good. They beat. I think they scored 2 goals in stoppage time towards the end of the final 90 against Wales. That's just what makes it really stink, because the U.S. should have won that game against Wales, and had they did, and had they just drawn England, they would have 4 points right now, and all they would need is a draw in this final game against Iran, and they would go through. It would be Iran that would actually be needing the game to win against the U.S. So they put themselves, not in a terrible situation, but one that they probably could have avoided. But still, go out and win the game. You advance. I don't know if they'll get to the quarterfinals or semifinals, but it'd be nice to get to the knockout round and play a pretty decent team overall.
All right, so let's talk about college football as well. Virginia Tech UV didn't play, but we did have some nice games going on this weekend. Michigan beat Ohio State, crushed Ohio State actually. We have 2 new coaches, Matt Rhule to Nebraska. What might be official within the next 2 days, Luke Fickell to Wisconsin. And then obviously you want to talk about the rest of the games this weekend. Where do you want to start with college football?
Yeah, I mean, that was a great weekend of college football. I did not expect Michigan to beat the hell out of Ohio State like that. I thought that was going to be Ohio State's game to lose. They're playing in Columbus. They hadn't lost in Michigan at home since 2000. Playing fine going into halftime. You're up by 3, but then the second half comes and Michigan just took over. They ran the ball down their throats. J.J. McCarthy hit some really nice passes. They were great in all 3 phases. And Ohio State's defense just had no answer for anything that Michigan was doing. Ryan Day, I thought, was brutally outcoached in this one like he was last year. And I don't know about you, but if the results next weekend hold and Georgia beats LSU and TCU beats Kansas State and USC wins the Pac-12 and Michigan wins the Big Ten, those are your 4 college football playoff teams, I think. I don't think Alabama gets in. I don't think Ohio State gets in. I think they're going to have to hope that someone like TCU or USC goes down so they can squeak in, or a team like Alabama who's sitting there in the lurking out there as well. Excuse me, I messed up my words. But, that loss, I think 90%, knocked them out of the playoff. They just did not look like a worthy college football playoff team against Michigan. And I know that's the best team they faced all season, but, this is a team that's kind of, been treading loosely a little bit. They almost lost to Maryland the previous week, but, other times they were kind of playing a lot of bad teams in the Big Ten. I think overall in the conference this year, it was those 2 teams plus Penn State as the top 3 teams in the Big Ten. And you look at the other division, all those teams stink. Michigan's playing Purdue in the Big Ten championship game. That's probably going to be a blowout. But, that was a great game overall. The Iron Bowl started out fun before Alabama decided to open up a can of whoop ass on Auburn. Did not think LSU was going to knock itself out of the college football playoff against Texas A&M. That's a really bad loss for Ryan Kelly. Even if they beat Georgia next week, and I don't think that's going to happen, I think Georgia's probably going to roll them. They would not be getting in the playoff. The committee would not put a 3-loss SEC team in the playoff. I think that would be ridiculous. But, I think it was another fun weekend of college football. The Oregon State game was awesome. And I know they can't call it the Civil War anymore for obvious reasons. I think that was disbanded a couple years ago, but that rivalry has always been a lot of fun to watch, and that went right down to the wire. I think Clemson is done. I think even if they win the ACC championship against North Carolina,
they're done.
You lose to South Carolina. And, credit to Shane Beamer. He's really turned that program around the last couple of years. I'm so happy for him. He is in the place where he wanted to be. I know some Tech fans on 247 are being weird about it. Like, oh, Tech didn't hire him in 2016. Who gives a crap? Like, he's where he wants to be. That's all that matters. And I'm happy for him. He's turning that program around. Spencer Rattler had a great game. He pulled a little Joe Burrow after it. And Clemson kind of self-destructed to start to help. Yes, but they came back and won at Death Valley. I mean, that's a big deal. You go down to Death Valley and you knock your rival out of the college football playoff sweepstakes. That's huge, man. So kudos to South Carolina for winning that game. Those are really the ones that stood out to me. Did anything else? Any of those stand out to you or anything else from college football?
I think the biggest mistake, I'll go to the college football playoffs a little bit, but the biggest thing that stood out for me was when it comes to Ohio State, Michigan. Look, we all know the way Michigan plays. They ground and pound and all that. Like they are pretty much, they're not. They play a certain style of football, and at the start of the game, they weren't playing that style of football because Ohio State was trying to stop it. But Michigan was able to hit those long plays, and I think that ended up being the difference in the game. Because once you do that, and once they were able to build up that margin, they were able to use the run game just to grind out the clock and crush the soul of Ohio State. And even with like Blake Cornum wasn't there, but the Donovan Edwards, I mean, he looked like a great runner. He looked like a really good running back, especially on a couple of those runs. And then you saw towards the end of the game, like when you have C.J. Stroud, I mean, C.J. Stroud lost the Heisman consideration at that point. I think it's Caleb Williams at this point. But with C.J. Stroud, you could definitely tell C.J. Stroud was rattled because like some of that interception at the end was bad. And then he made a couple of bad mistakes. And then Alabama obviously beating Alabama, that was not surprising. Good on Shane Beamer. He would be crushed at Virginia Tech. I'll be honest with the expectations. So I'm kind of happy he's having success at South Carolina. He gets to build. He's never going to be able to escape the Beamer name, but he gets to build his own legacy at South Carolina, and that's good for him. And then you've got what was it? Oh yeah, the college football playoff thing. I think it's very clear who. I think it's Georgia, Michigan. They're in. TCU more than likely is going to be in, and at last spot USC or Ohio State. But I think it's USC, Georgia, TCU, Michigan, and then I think it'll be a rarity. No Alabama, no Ohio State, no Clemson. What are your thoughts on that?
That'll be the first time, I believe, that we would not see any of those 3 teams in the playoff. And I think the sport needs that. You need more of these, I shouldn't say, I guess it's sad, bad to say it, but lesser known teams than those big 3 in the playoff. And I understand that people are going to say that, this is why the 4-team system works. I get it. But also, these people would be kind of complaining if it was the other way around, right? So I still support expansion. Yes. Would those teams be in the playoff if there was an 8 or 12 team playoff? Yes. But, ratings, money, that does the talking when it comes to this expansion. So it's not going to be like this every year. But I think, for this, we should celebrate that there's going to be potential, two new teams in the playoff compared to last year. Georgia's going to make it. I think even if they lose a team, they're going in. You're not going to put Georgia outside of the playoff. Michigan, I think even if they lose, very unlikely, they will be in as well. Though those two teams are going in. It's just the other two spots I think are still a little up for grabs. But if TCU wins, they should get it. They should make it. If they lose, I don't think they will, even if they are 12-1. And then I think, as you said, USC, they should get in as well. That would be a great job for Lincoln Riley. First year, you take your team to the college football playoff. That's a great coaching job from him. So, I think the games would be still watchable. I think if you see like a team like Georgia, TCU, Michigan versus USC, I think those games would be really good, do really good ratings. I think Georgia would crush TCU. I mean, they're the best team in the country, but I think Michigan, USC would have the potential to be really good. And I think even if the other way around, I think Georgia, USC, if that's the 1-4 will be good. Michigan, TCU, I think would be a bit better in terms of both games. And then a potential national championship between Georgia and Michigan, that would be a lot of fun. So, I like where the playoff is at this season. Do I still support expansion? Yes, but not having any of those big three teams in there, that makes me happy. Just because we don't need to see the same storylines year after year after year. That it can take a year off. We're not going to get the expansion for, I think, 2 to 3. I think 3 to 4 years actually at the most. So just enjoy it. It's been a fun season. Conference championships right around the corner. Let's see how the final rankings shake out.
All right. Yeah, I mean, and then I'll say about the coaching. I think that Matt Rule's good for college coach. He's not good for NFL coach.
I like the hire from Nebraska. I think he's going to do a good job there. He hopefully can turn that program around, and then I'll let you finish though. Then I'll get.
No. I was gonna say he did a good job building a couple of programs in Baylor and in I think it was Rutgers. I think it
was Temple. I think it was
Temple. Yeah, Temple is the one. Yes. But yeah, he did a good job there, and that's how he got the NFL job. But we clearly saw how he was as a coach. Some guys are just better coaches in the college level, and that might be what Matt Rule is. And Luke Fickell, that's always been a hot name as a head coach, moving up. We'll see what he does from Wisconsin. But yeah, the way he developed that Cincinnati team was pretty good, and the way he definitely has that experience working under Urban Meyer, being in that Ohio State defensive coordinator position. So it's gonna be pretty interesting to see what he could do at Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I know VT fans really wanted him last cycle, but I don't think he was ever going to be for Virginia Tech. I mean, Wisconsin, let's face it, it's a bigger name school. It's a bigger job. You're in the Big Ten. The tradition there, I think, is a bit bigger than Virginia Tech. I don't think most people can argue against that. So, and that's also a program that needs to get back to where it used to be as, one of the top teams in the nation. And I think he can get them to winning consistent, 10-plus win games each year. So I'm really excited to see how he does there.
All right, so let's move on to the rest of the NFL. So we will talk about the Ravens game first. Obviously, it was disappointing. Look, you had they had 3 trips into the red zone. They had 3 field goals. That's 12 points right there. That's honestly a difference in the game. So they definitely need to get better at that. Because here's the thing: the frustrating part is the Ravens' offense is very good from the 20 to the 20-yard range. Between that range, they are very good. But once you get inside the 20, that's when they start to struggle. And I don't know if it's the Roman thing. I don't know if it's the Lamar thing. I don't know if it's the Harbaugh thing. I don't know. I know people are going to say, well, what about the receivers? I don't know. I don't think it's the receivers. It might be Lamar trying to play a little bit of a Superman role in that one and trying to make the heroic play, because you do see him take sacks and you do see all this other stuff there. He struggles with the deep ball. There were some big. There was some obviously he had to catch to Deshaun. He had to throw to Deshaun Jackson, but other than that, the Ravens do throw deep a ton. Lamar has him. I think it was him and Jets quarter Zach Wilson have the 2 worst completion percentages on deep balls. And look, I know a lot of Ravens fans are saying, well, get Lamar a receiver, But I think part of the reason why the Ravens don't really invest in the receiver position is because the difference between the receiver and the pass catching tight end are those deep balls. And if Lamar naturally isn't very good at that, but he's really great in the middle of the field, and you think there's a market inefficiency with the pass catching tight ends, then yeah, employ those pass catching tight ends, and then use speed like Deshaun Jackson and Devin Duvernay and Hollywood Brown and those guys. But defense definitely failed them. Do you think the defense was playing too soft in the last minute, last
Well,
drive?
his possession, yeah, I think I think Marcus Peters got cooked on that touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great catch, but he still got kind of cooked there. And I think they were just playing too far back. I think they were just playing for prevent in that situation. But
Yeah.
Jaguars were just getting easy chunks of yardage, and you can't allow a team that's 3-7 to bully you like that. I know it's on the road, but I think that's just a really bad loss for them. I was texting you this. I think the Ravens are really lucky that they have a really soft schedule the rest of the way. You have Denver next week. You have Atlanta. You play the Steelers twice. I mean, I know the Steelers have given Lamar Jackson trouble over the years, but they've also been a better team with a better offense. So I don't really know how winnable those games are for the Steelers at this point. I think you still play Cleveland one more time.
And the Bengals.
Yeah. So you have a lot of winnable games left. It's not like the end of the season by any means, but still, if you had a tougher schedule, I think there will be a lot more panic within the fan base. I look at this team and I look at the top two teams in the North, and even though the Bengals won today too, I'm just like, this is the best the AFC North has got to offer. I don't know. I just feel like both are just one and done teams when January comes around. But, I also could say the same thing about a lot of other teams in the AFC outside the Chiefs. So it's kind of hard to predict. But yeah, I thought this coverage was a bit soft. I think they have a lot of offensive struggles as well.
Also, Ronnie Stanley wasn't there. Isaiah Likely wasn't there. And obviously,
I think you need like at least a decent game-breaking wide receiver, like someone like a T. Higgins that can really take the top off the defense.
Well, that's what Bateman was supposed to be. That's why they drafted Bateman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why they drafted Bateman. That's why they drafted Duvernay and James Prochet and Tylan Wallace and like all these other guys. And they're probably going to draft one or two more receivers. But I mean, part of it is also a philosophical shift more towards employing pass-catching tight ends, where teams would value receivers, and then maybe valuing speed in receivers. So you kind of or because you look at Sean Jackson, and he might not be a complete receiver, but his speed complements a Mark Andrews. Like you saw in that play, you had by having Deshaun Jackson on the field, you use his speed as a decoy, and then you throw the underneath pass to Mark Andrews. But then it ended up being long pass to Deshaun Jackson. So I think that's what their approach is. Like Demarcus Robinson is a pretty fast guy, and he's been reliable. And it's sort of like using the tight ends in the middle of the field to kind of move the ball methodically, and then using the receiver-specific traits of receivers, such as speed or route running, all that other stuff. So again, maybe they don't think that they don't want to pay top-tier market price, but they're looking for guys like Demarcus Robinson and putting them in positions to make plays. So yeah, maybe they do. Maybe a game-breaking receiver would help, but maybe a mid-tier receiver would help because the system that they have is basically using the run game and tight ends for the majority of your offense, and then using specialty receivers essentially to fill in the gaps, almost like two pieces of a puzzle instead of what most teams would do, which is the three receiver sets and the four, because most defenses nowadays are actually focused on stopping those. So if you do more physical players, but that are also athletic, that's one way to break those defenses. But then also the trade-off is the speed and route running of receivers like the Higgins and all these and Chases and just Justin Jefferson, you miss out on it. So you kind of balance it out with specific traits. So it's like building a bullpen in baseball, right? It's like some guys are good against lefties, some guys are good at strikeouts, some guys are. That's the type of offense we're trying to build. So I mean, it is a debate to have. I mean, I'll also point out Kyle Hamilton, who's kind of found a role as that nickel corner. He wasn't playing today. So like again, there are pieces that are coming to getting healthier, and Dobbins should be coming back soon. Ojabo should be coming back soon, and so it's going to be interesting. I agree with you. I think there's only one good team in the AFC right now. That's Kansas City. I think Buffalo maybe, but Buffalo, like Josh Allen, hasn't been good last 5 games.
I mean he hasn't been the same this year. I mean the Bengals are starting to wake up a little bit, but I don't really know how much I trust them. The Dolphins aren't bad. I'll say that. I think they could make a little bit of noise. The Jets actually look competent again today with Mike White. Don't know if I would trust him in a playoff game though. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with my words. It's just like the AFC North as a whole. It's just, two good teams, decently good teams, two very bad teams. That's really it. Again, I think the Ravens are pretty lucky that they just play some soft teams down the stretch where they're not going to be tested that much.
Yeah, and I think that, but also just be careful when you go on Ravens Twitter because it's a lot of agenda. I feel like it's a lot of agenda-driven people. It's like people who want Harbaugh gone, or people who want Greg Roman gone, or people who think the Ravens philosophy is old-fashioned, even though they've been winning a ton of games. And I'll be honest, their approach is probably better long-term than a team like the Rams, who might have to tear it down in a few years. But just be careful when you go into Twitter because Ravens Twitter because it's a lot of agenda-driven noise, which is why I try to avoid it as much as I can. Like I've blocked a lot of big Ravens Twitter accounts, of Ravens fans accounts, because it's like I'm just sick and tired of you guys. I'm just I'm pretty sure you're doing the same thing with Steelers with some Steelers fans on Twitter as well.
I don't engage in debates and stuff. I just ignore it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So then other stuff as well. It wasn't really too much.
The Browns got to win today, but before Deshaun Watson comes back, I don't really think that's going to save their season. But the Bucs just choked that game. That's a bad Bucs team. I don't know what's going on there. I have the Chiefs game on in the background here. This is basically already a shellacking against the Rams. The Dolphins got a big win over the Texans today, but the Texans are also really bad. The Jets look competent with an actual quarterback in there, so they're 7-4. They are very much in the playoff race this season. Their defense is very good. The Bears, that was funny before the game when they didn't know if they were going to start Nathan Peterman or Trevor Siemian. It was like a true game time decision. A lot of those other 1:00 games, though, were just really bad, I felt like. Did you have any did you notice anything from today's games or from the Thanksgiving games that stood out to you?
For Thanksgiving games, not really a ton. The Giants are kind of falling back down to earth. I think it's gonna be a 2-team race between Eagles and Cowboys. The Vikings, Patriots, nothing too much there. Bills and Detroit. We'll see how long Von Miller's out for, but like I said, Josh Allen hasn't looked good for the last 5 games, so nothing else really stood out. And I think we'll end the show on that note. We might have a show next week. I'll be at the Ravens game, and we'll see if your schedule is going to fit what we can do. But if we don't, we'll meet. If you meet next week, we'll be around Saturday, Sunday around this time, or if you don't, then it'll be 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, we'll talk to you all hopefully next week, but definitely the week after.
All right.